A few days ago, while scrolling through Instagram, three very interesting posts popped up back to back on my feed. The first one stating that Almirón has backed off from the transfer to Chelsea. The second one stating that the Blues were interested in João Felix after Almirón's refusal. And the third one confirming Pedro Neto's move to London for €60 million. All three posts revolving around one team, one that wears blue and is from London, Chelsea Football Club. Since the board takeover they had over 2 years ago with an investment of $4.2 billion by a consortium unified under Todd Boehly, the club from London has spent over £1 billion on transfers in 2 years, spending over $60 million on players 5 times, including splashing $100 million twice on Enzo Fernandez and Moises Caicedo. Chelsea currently have over 40 players in their squad. Premier League regulations impose them to come up with a 25-man team, with at least 3 players having played in English academies for 3 years, so they have to make some moves quick if they don't want to leave someone out. However, it must be said that under-21s don't have to be registered, giving them some breathing room. But one simple question that could come to mind may be, wait a second, don't we have financial fair play rules? How can Chelsea spend over $1 billion in 2 years, but clubs like Roma have to be careful with every penny they use in transfers to not incur into sanctions, or even worse, a ban? Chelsea's strategy is actually very interesting. Those of you that have been paying close attention will have already spotted this. They usually give out contracts that last for 7 to 8 years. A few examples: Robert Sanchez signed a contract that ties him to the club till 2030. Mykhailo Mudryk, who Chelsea paid £88.5 million for, has one that lasts till 2031. Same goes for Fernandez and Caicedo, both of them seeing theirs expire in 2031. You get the idea. When I saw this pattern, I asked myself, why? What's the point of having all these expensive players on their payroll for so long? So I did some research. Oh, and by the way, I'm not an economist. I'm not going to even sit here and pretend to understand everything that happens behind the scenes with money in this sport. If anyone knows more than I do, please feel free to leave something written down in the comments. I'm just talking about things that I found, putting it out there. You choose to listen to me or not. But what I did find was that all this ties to a little something that people in finance call amortization. Basically, with such long contracts, the club can write off the transfer fee year by year. So for example, instead of writing down in one go that they had $132 million leave their bank for Enzo Fernandez, who signed a contract for 8 years, they can have it down as $16.5 million payments per year, which is then easier for them to balance the books with. This also helps them to stay within financial fair play rules, even if UEFA is starting to implement new regulations that forbids amortization to last for more than 5 years. We will see if the Premier League catches on. So it has to be analyzed this way. They're not spending all that money in one go, but they're spreading them on a longer period, keeping them in the green. Now that we've got the whole how do they spend so much money and keep themselves within FFP down, we can talk about their at times questionable choices in transfers, and more importantly, the fee in relation to the players' performances. Not potential, only performances. I watched a brilliant video by Baize on this topic. The absolutely absurd transfer fees that are being paid for some players that aren't even regulars at their teams in the major divisions yet. Some haven't even played in the top league before. Let's use an example to make this easier. Chelsea paid €22.50 million for an 18-year-old that plays in the under-21s of Aston Villa, Omari Kellyman, who made 2 professional appearances for the senior team. His numbers are good in the youth divisions of the Prem, scoring 7 goals in 11 appearances, but does that warrant the price tag? Chelsea have this transfer policy of signing players in the hopes they become stars, then resell for profit, but it doesn't look like they're following any rule other than that. Also, this strategy is very aggressive, because yes, maybe 1 or 2 will pop, but you'll still be left with about 15 others on your payroll. They signed Cesare Cazadei 2 years ago, and up until now he has made very few appearances for the Blues. To put it into perspective, Transfermarkt says that Cazadei played 11 games for Chelsea. Guess how many minutes he's had combined in all those games? 71. Yeah, you heard me right. More often than not coming off the bench in the final 2-3 minutes of the match. He doesn't look to be in the plans of Maresca this year, not stepping on the field once for Chelsea's preseason friendlies. He was loaned out to Reading and again to Leicester last year just to have it terminated early, because, and this is merely speculative, he wasn't getting enough minutes, with him more often than not coming off the bench in the Foxes' championship run. Now, what does Leicester and Chelsea have in common? The coach was Enzo Maresca. Another example we can find is David Washington. The talented Brazilian forward was signed from Santos during the 2023-24 transfer window. with a fee of 16 million euros being paid. He currently has 2 appearances for Chelsea and is getting more playing time on the B team. This might have been an investment for the future as the guy is still 18 years old, but 16 million for somebody that's played 11 minutes professionally for you? I get 5 to 8, which seems reasonable if you see the potential in him, but anything other than that is a stretch. Then again, with the way current prices are in football, with clubs overpaying players by a lot, a 50 million euro striker 4 years ago is an 80 million euro striker today. But I think somebody that is leading the line by doing this is Chelsea. With the way they're conducting business, people can say, oh, they paid 60 million for Pedro Neto. The player I have here is more talented than him. Then does that mean he's worth 90 million? They're setting precedents which then dictate transfers going forward. Clubs see that there are people willing to pay the prices, so they slap an extra 30 to 40 million in the hopes of getting that extra payday. Trouble is, before it wouldn't work because the club would just laugh it off or something when asked to pay 100 million for someone worth 40. Now, with Chelsea's spending spree, somebody might actually do it. With all these players, the Blues would need a good man manager or someone that can unify the whole dressing room. And we get to, in my opinion, another one of the Blues, let's say situations. Their choice of manager. Before Enzo Maresca under Todd Boehly, there have been 3 other managers not counting the interims. Sorry Lampard. Thomas Tuchel, who had a 43% win rate, but due to the timing of the takeover only coached 7 professional games for them. Graham Potter, who became head coach last year after Tuchel's departure. 31 games with a 39% win rate, sacked mid-season and rightfully so. In a year where Chelsea would find themselves on the bottom half of the Premier League table, he would find himself jobless in April mid-season. The third name on this list is a face well known in London, more precisely in North London. Mauricio Pochettino, joining the Blues at the start of the following season. He led them to an FA Cup semi-final and a Carabao Cup final, losing out to Liverpool in extra time. His tenure was not successful by all means, but he managed to string together a couple of results at the end of the season to put Chelsea 6th and in a spot for Europe. All this earned him a resignation through mutual agreement, having to leave London for the second time. Various coaches were then looked at, with Michel, the head coach of Girona, and Thomas Frank, manager at Brentford, both on that list. Ultimately, the decision went to Enzo Maresca. The Italian was on the wings of a title-winning season with Leicester in the Championship, that being his second ever job as head coach, after a small stint at Parma, where he would be sacked in 13 games. Now, what I don't understand is the decision to keep changing managers to safeguard the short term. It has been said that Pochettino and the clubs came to a mutual agreement. But it has also been said that after the final game of the season, there would have been a performance review of the Argentine's time at Chelsea. I think sacking him was a bad decision for 2 reasons. 1. There was no valid available alternative on the market. Pochettino knows what it likes to play tough games. He knows what pressure at the highest level feels like, and I'm saying this with full regards for the future. Maresca could win the treble and I'd still back this. I'm not saying he's a bad manager, mind you. Just the line of decision that led to his hiring is flawed in my humble opinion. Then again, I'm a nobody that sits behind a computer making videos for YouTube while these people are putting their money where their mouth is. The second problem for me is them trying to achieve short-term boosts with no regards for the long term. Because what are they going to do? Overhaul the team every time they hire a new manager? It took Arteta 5 years to build a team capable of fighting with Manchester City. Klopp needed 4 to become competitive. My point is, these things take time. Changing managers year in year out will just throw the players off and delay everything. The worst part is, a lot of the players are very young. They will lack the stability needed to be able to grow, because they would be training in a different system each year, rendering it impossible to develop a game close to their own, because they would spend all year adapting. So I feel like all this is doing is slowing down Chelsea's rebuild. But let's look at the results from the start of pre-season. And I know these are friendlies, so they should be looked at with that perspective. But these are also the only stats we have at the moment of Maresca's work. Out of 6 games, they only managed to win 1. A 3-0 against Club America, drawing games against Wrexham and Inter. They got handed heavy defeats against Manchester City and Celtic, both teams scoring 4 goals against them. In the first 2 matches, a defensive line of 3 players was tried. 6 goals were conceded from these games, so they then changed to a much more traditional 4-2-3-1. Testing out various players in the position of attacking midfielder. Marc Guiu, one of La Masia's most recent productions and also one of the most stellar pieces of business by Chelsea in the last few years, having gained his services by paying 6 million, has seen a lot of playing time at the start of this season, also considering Chelsea don't have a real striker up there at the moment. It's either him or Armando Broja. and it looks like Maresca has made his choice on who the starter will be. Guyu definitely looks interesting, and if he can develop and adapt quickly to the pace of the Premier League, then he can become a top player. So in conclusion, what is going on with Chelsea? I think they need to find a good fit for a managerial position and stick with it, even when it gets ugly. Constantly changing managers is going to be very difficult for them to lay down the basis for a solid work. Something like how Klopp has done. It took him a few years, but he managed to put down the groundwork, and now Liverpool are doing pretty well for themselves. Also, some much needed consistency needs to be found on the level of transfers, because right now, there doesn't seem to be any structure to it. They look like me when I play Football Manager and just sign all of the young players that show a slight potential at whatever the asking price is. Chelsea's team is very young, so they'll need someone to guide them along the right path. Can that person be Maresca? Maybe. It's still a bit too early to talk about his managerial performances. Just right now, I think the Blues aren't really sure how they want to handle the club going forward. They need someone to go in and say, okay, we need to do this, this and this and get ourselves out of the situation. I know Chelsea fans aren't happy with how things are being done, but still, they remain one of the top 6 teams in England. It would be interesting to see what happens with managers like Ancelotti or Guardiola, these hyper-demanding managers that need full trust from the board. But at the moment, Chelsea will work with what they have. And again, I'm not saying Maresca is a bad manager, but we just don't have enough data to judge him by, so we just need to wait and see. In any case, I hope Chelsea gets out of this slump that is lasting a few years. They just need to stop trying to throw money at the problem, sit down and understand where the underlying problem is, work towards a fix, and then slowly start rebuilding that culture into their players and their fans. Thank you everyone for watching. I've tried my hand a bit in this video with animations. I hope you enjoyed them. If you did, please like and subscribe. That's it from Mizala. Peace out.